Great. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, to the Board of Education meeting, February 1st, 2016. Just a couple of housekeeping items to start off. We have a packed agenda, so I'll try and speak as quickly as my Newark upbringing will allow. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend meetings of the public body at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the School District of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham Township and the Chatham Borough, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind doing roll call?
Sure. Mr. Gilfillan. Mr. Corelli.
Here.
Ms. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Connors.
Here.
Ms. Berman. Mr. Franz.
Here.
Ms. Kenny.
Here.
Ms. Weber.
Yes, here.
6 present and the count.
Fantastic. Would everybody stand and join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, we have a packed agenda, and we're going to start off introducing our new Board of Education member. It was a very extensive process. In fact, Ms. Clark, if you don't, would you mind? You wanted to say a couple of words, if you don't, before we introduce Sal?
Well, I just want to say, as having sat on the committee, I said to Jill and to Mike, it was, we had many people come forward who were highly qualified and really engaged in the process, and it's refreshing to see. Hopefully, people will continue to show interest in running for the board, coming out when positions are open during the election time, because we need good people. We need people who are interested to serve on this board. So it was actually really refreshing to see people come out and show an interest and a strong interest. So.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the township members for taking that on. I appreciate the time and energy that everybody put into it, and I know everybody said the candidates were so strong, and it was difficult to choose, and Sal didn't run for the hills. He accepted the position, so we're happy to swear Sal Arnott in tonight. I've known Sal for a number of years. In fact, he and his wife used to volunteer at the nursery school when their children were at Chatham United Methodist Nursery School. So for a long, long time, Sal and Caroline have been active in the community, and Sal's apparently not afraid yet, so he's stepping up his game, and he's actually given up a position on as the co-president of the Chatham Music Theater Boosters to volunteer and generously give of his time and talents to the district as a whole. I'm sure he'll keep an eye on the performing arts, but he's really helping the community, giving back, and instead of shying away, he's stepping up his game and offering to put in more time and more skin in the game, and he's going to bring his time and talents, and I'm really looking forward to having Sal on the board. I've been working him for a couple of years, and finally he jumped in, so I'm thrilled to have Sal on the board. Peter, do you want to do the swearing in? This way we can get him indoctrinated by fire.
Tom, does record the screen work?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Jill. Here's the mic up here if you will.
I will do my best. Correct place. If you would hold your right hand on that one.
Hi, Sal Arnott.
Do solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God. Sal Arnott,
Do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of a member of the Board of Education
for the office of member of of the Board of Education,
am not disqualified as a voter
and am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
pursuant to RS.19:4-1,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties of that office
perform all the duties of that office,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations and welcome to the Board of Education.
Welcome aboard, Sal. Thank you again for volunteering. You guys told him it was only a couple of meetings a year, right? He's all sworn in now, he can't back out. I think it would be remiss if we didn't mention a few words about Sal's predecessor, John Nonamaker. I was hoping he was going to make it here today, but I think he got stuck on trial in Brooklyn, or he was summing up a trial. But I can't help but mention that John Nonamaker had dedicated five long years, a little over 5 years, to the Board of Education, and his service and his dedication was absolutely invaluable. He put so much dedication and so much thought into every decision, and bar none, his decisions were always based on what's best for the whole child, the whole student. He was also concerned about the community, but certainly the student was first. He wanted to make sure that they were going to be taken care of emotionally, academically, physically. He wanted to ensure that the decision that he made was going to better the student in some capacity. And John, he did 5 years, but make no mistake, he's no one-hit wonder. I don't know if anybody knows this, but John was an Eagle Scout in his youth, so he started giving back to his community in his teens, and then subsequently went on to be a packmaster, which those of you that have children in Cub Scouts, that's where about 80 Cub Scouts look up to you to set the tone, to set the pace, to set goals, and it's, not everybody can do that, and John stepped up and he became the packmaster for the township. And if that wasn't enough, he probably was a wrestling coach for the better part of 20 years, Ann, and still involved in wrestling. And we tease him about his involvement in wrestling, but man, when a kid came in contact with John Nonamaker on the mat, he left there standing taller and encouraged to take on anything he wanted to, whether it was to keep going or achieve a goal. There's one kid came off the mat crying his eyes out. And John, with his Brooklyn accent, goes, "What are you crying about?" He goes, "That kid took third in the States, and he didn't pin you. He pinned every other guy." Kid's like, his tears went away. He stood a little taller. The kid left the room like a giant. So John's dedication to children and students, it's really amazing. And he does it off to the side. He doesn't do it with a lot of fanfare, but his moral compass is to set directly to north and what's best for the kids. And in true generosity of fashion, John's term was up this year, and he knows how daunting it is to maybe run an election, or it could be just a little imposing on people to run an election. They don't want to do it. So in true generosity fashion, he stepped down in order to give some of the township community an opportunity to maybe just sit in the seat for a year, see if they like it. So again, I can't say enough kind things about John Nonamaker. He's been a fantastic board member. He's, whenever we needed him, whenever we needed him to be here, he would be here. I remember calling him up. He was in Brooklyn, and I'm sure he got screamed at by some judge, but we needed to make a quorum, and he drove from Brooklyn to here, probably got fined for contempt of court, but he made this a priority, and he got here. So, I welcome Sal, and I really appreciate John's dedication to the board, and I'm sure Sal will do an equally fantastic job. So that's all. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to throw a couple of nice things there about John, but I wish he was here, but
I would.
that'd be great.
John, first and foremost, John was a good friend of mine. Before he
Hey,
got,
John, Mike.
I'm sorry. John was a good friend of mine even before he got on the board, but I found him to be an even better board member. John was one of the most conscientious members I've ever encountered. I've been on the board my third term, so I've seen a lot of board members come and go. John, by far, was one of the most conscientious individuals I've ever met. There's an old adage, 90-10, where you got 10% of the people doing 90% of the work, and that continues from kindergarten through rec all the way up. John was not only a member of the 10%, but he was a leader of the 10%. He never said no to a friend or to any issue that popped up on the Board of Education. Over the years I was with John, I didn't always agree with all of his decisions, but I never questioned his commitment and integrity. To him, the kids always came first. Again, you may disagree with what positions John took or the basis, but never challenge or question his integrity to the board. And his commitment was to the children, bar none. He will be missed. He's got big shoes to fill, Sal, but I'm confident he'll do a great job. But I do miss John, and he'll be missed. Thank you.
I sure will. Thank you, Rich. Okay, we're gonna move on. I know we have a packed agenda, and Dr. LaSousa, I know you have a fairly large report tonight with a lot of audience members. So, without further ado, Dr. LaSousa.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I echo your sentiments both about Sal and welcoming him to the board, and of course about John, who I agree. I have nothing but respect for John. Appreciate all he did for me personally as superintendent, and I absolutely agree that every conversation we ever had behind closed doors in committee was always about students and the best thing to do for the district and nothing else. So I thank John as well for his service to the students in the school district. Pivoting now, we have tonight, we once a year typically invite any staff member who has earned tenure this school year in to be recognized publicly. You all should have gotten an email from my secretary that you are limited to 2 minutes in the speech that you must give. Just kidding, you don't have to speak, you can just stand up. So not all of the staff members who acquired tenure this year were able to make it tonight, but we do have about a dozen or so folks who were able to join us. So I'm just going to call your name and mention the school that you teach in. And if you could just stand up and give a little wave, that would be great. And I'll say something that I probably said when they joined us a few years back to them at New Teacher Orientation in August, which was that we have a huge number of applicants typically for the positions, except for James's position over there, chemistry science teacher at the high school. But for many other positions in the district, it's not uncommon for us to receive 300, 400, even 500 applications for a single position. And we have a lengthy process that our administrators undertake to select talented staff. Typically that process involves not just an initial interview, but also a lesson plan sample or a writing sample or a model lesson where we invite prospective teachers into the classroom to teach a group of students. So these folks made it through all of that and then, of course, excelled over the past several years to acquire tenure and land here with us tonight. So I just want to thank all of you for everything you've been doing for the students. And now I'll just go kind of through alphabetical order via the schools that are represented tonight. And I'll start off with James Kai, who is also coaching tennis in addition to teaching science at Chatham High School. James. Next up, my backcourt teammate at the Harlem Wizards game 2 weeks ago, Mr. Jeff Cleary. And Jeff and the next half dozen people are all from Lafayette Avenue School. So next up is Kim Delano. Jen Duran. Nicole Schneider. I think, yeah, Nicole's got bigger fish to fry. I think she recently gave birth to her first child. So congratulations to Nicole. That's even more important than acquiring tenure in Chatham. Chris Magno. And he says he can run a 5-minute mile. I didn't forget that from a bunch of years ago. Now we'll move over to Southern Boulevard School. Oh, did I forget something? Who did I forget over there? Melissa Curcio. I'm sorry, Melissa Curcio. My apologies, Melissa. Okay, to Southern Boulevard School then. I jumped one here. Jen Fury to kick it off. Peggy Herr. Laura Piccola. Peggy Kepler. And the only person in the audience with the distinction of having been a student of mine in her sophomore year at Chatham High School in social studies class, Caitlin Calais. Thank you all very much. Great job. You don't have to stay any longer, and we absolutely appreciate everything that you've done for the
Thank you
district and
so
our
much.
students. I don't know if Ms. Weber wants to...
I just have to thank you for dedicating your professional lives to teaching. I have such a newfound respect for teachers. I know people see you leave the building sometime after school ends, and I know you're up till midnight grading papers, doing SGOs, entering lesson plans. It is endless. People think teachers, oh, it's an easy job, they're out. It is an endless job. I know you're giving up more time on weekends than people could even count. So thank you again for dedicating your professional lives to help our children in this community. I just can't thank you enough, and it's really just, you know, I don't know how to shout it from the rooftops how hard your jobs are. So thank you.
And
Now get a good night's sleep.
Peg Kepler over there, she's not a teacher. She's the main show in the office at Southern Boulevard School, which is in a lot of ways an even tougher job. Dealing with all the traffic that comes in
Oh, yeah.
from parents, all the teachers who need things quickly, that ogre, Rob Gardella of a principal, who's just constantly very difficult. But not only the teachers here, but also the secretarial staff who earn tenure do a terrific job for us.
And Melissa, I think Mike owes you one because you forgot your name, so I put that in the bank.
That's true.
Get
Get in line.
That's on the record, by the way.
I don't really have any other thing to report under my segment of the agenda. We did use our second snow day in that we had to close high school for a water main break earlier in January, so we're out of 2 snow days. We have a couple more left in the bank, and hopefully the weather will stay in the 50s like it was today for the rest of the winter.
Thank you for coming. Thank you again. We'll just give you guys a minute before we move on to Mr. DeQuilla's report. Well, fantastic. Thank you, Dr. LaSousa. It's quite an A-team. Mr. DeQuilla, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll just follow suit, and I was fortunate enough to be on the spectator in the Township Committee search, and, you know, there were some very good candidates, of which Mr. Arnott has risen to the top, and wish him very well and look forward to working with him. I will also send out, you know, accolades and thanks to John, John Nonamaker, because I think he was a great board member, and I feel like I have a lifelong friend, and I've only known him a few years, so I think that was great. I just want to report and, you know, publicly acknowledge the district maintenance staff for the amazing job they did clearing the snow last weekend. The bulk of the staff was in the wee hours of Saturday morning and basically worked straight through till Sunday midday, making sure that the district and all the parking lots were cleared. They also, once the custodians came in on Sunday, assisted the custodians cleaning up. So the district staff had the buildings ready for school, even though that we were forced to take a snow day. The one issue that I'd like to go publicly is ask publicly out and ask the public for a little cooperation. When the district staff is working to clear the buildings, I understand that kids like the sleigh ride and people like to walk their dogs in snowy fields. But when the trucks are in the parking lots, please don't send your kids into the parking lot, especially a day like last Saturday when the visibility was not very well. You know, it's very difficult to see a 4th or a 5th grader with in a black snowsuit, or once he gets covered with snow, and the guys don't want to push snow into anybody, or if they're operating a bucket loader with making piles, they don't want to dump snow and bury somebody. You know, whether it be a dog or, heaven forbid, a child, or even, worst case, an adult. So please, cooperate. I mean, I don't think you'd send your kids in traffic to play. Please don't send them in the parking lots if we're operating machinery. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to the committee reports, starting with personnel. Ms. Clark?
Personnel has not met since our last meeting. I think we're meeting on the 22nd is our next meeting.
Yep. Very good. Thank you. Moving on to curriculum. Ms. Kenny?
Curriculum met prior to this. It was prior to this meeting. It was an open curriculum meeting that, and we had a guest speaker who was Stephen Marr, who was the social studies supervisor for K to 12, and he gave us an overview of the programs that are currently in place within the district.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Moving on to Finance and Facilities, Mr. Gilfillan is traveling today, so Mr. Connors has graciously agreed to give the report.
Yes, we had a meeting on January 20th. I think our next meeting is February 17th at 6:30, correct?
Yes.
But at the January 20th meeting, Peter DeQuilla went over the calendar, the budget calendar, capital spending, and health benefit update. We were presented with capital spending plan for 2016-2017, which we reviewed and the committee supported. We also discussed the health benefit renewal and regarding discussions concerning the current health plan for employees. There was also a discussion regarding the Stanley Church and the possibility, I underscore, of available space at that location. That is in the early stages and far from anywhere you can make a commitment, but we are looking into that as a possibility. Then there was also a discussion regarding the Washington Avenue driveway update. The Borough Council will be discussing this issue at the next meeting, which was the last meeting, January 25th. Hopefully a resolution will be approved at some point in our lifetime. Hello? Okay, thank you. That's all I have on the agenda.
Oh, fantastic. Does anybody have any questions for Rich on the Finance and Facilities items? Moving on to Policy and Planning, Mr. Franz?
Nothing to report. Our next meeting is end of this month, 29th.
29th? Great, thank you very much. And negotiations, Mr. Connors?
Yes, we had negotiations, had an impromptu meeting, well, not impromptu, an informal meeting with the, what I think would be considered the negotiation team for the teachers union. The purpose of that was to just kind of meet and greet and find out, to discuss the timetable and the plan of what we would like to proceed, and hopefully this contract will move as smoothly as the last one did. I'll keep you updated as to how those negotiations progress.
Okay, is there a timeline when that has to be completed, or I'm sorry, that we're setting a goal to try and complete it?
There's more of a preferred timeline
Okay.
to have it done. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of things that could influence that timeline. We are starting about the same time we started the last series of negotiations. I don't want to give a timeline,
Okay.
only because you never know what's going to happen in
Sure.
these negotiations.
Okay,
And our goal is, as are the teachers, to move this along as quickly as we can. There'll be some issues to be addressed, but I'm confident that we will be able to reach a reasonable accord to the satisfaction of everyone. Or to the satisfaction of none, which is always a good sign of a settlement.
as an expert settler, I trust you. Does anybody have any questions for Rich on the negotiations front? No? Okay, fantastic. Moving on to the liaison reports, back to Mr. Connors for the borough,
Nothing to report for the borough?
Ms. Clark for the township,
Nothing to report from the township.
back to Mr. Connors for the athletic boosters.
Yes, the boosters had a meeting on January 6th. Again, before I get into the meats of it, I would just really want to implore as many people as possible to support the Chatham High School Athletic Boosters. They do a tremendous amount, not only to the sports program, but as I'll get into in their what occurred at the last meeting, they do a lot for the community at large. They've donated money. Each Christmas they have a fundraiser, and they will select a charity, and they will raise money for that charity. And they try to keep it a Chatham-based type of charity, and they raised close to over $8,700. $8,700 they raised and donated to an incredibly worthy organization, the John Taylor Babbitt Foundation. I know you may have heard this the last time you were here, is that unfortunately the Babbitts had a terrible tragedy, but they turned that and their loss into a gain for the rest of Chatham. They were instrumental in posting a number of defibrillators throughout the district and the borough and the township. And they were kind enough to show up and actually accept a donation at the Morris men's basketball game against Mo Beard. And I would implore anyone to, there was an article in the TAP regarding the Babbitt Foundation and what they do, and it's an incredible story. It's a story of a family that lost a son, child, and they chose to fulfill his dream and helping other people. And what the Babbitt Foundation has done is incredible. And again, I applaud everything that the boosters do because they do so much in raising money for not only sports programs, but for this sort of charity right there. The next board meeting for the boosters will be Wednesday. And I will be in attendance at that as well. I think that's the last of my comments.
Okay. And one thing I neglected to transition, the boosters donated $200 to the men's basketball team. And the assistant, I believe he's new this year, Joe Reel, the assistant men's basketball coach, who I believe is a teacher in another district, he's organizing a fundraiser for the Children's Cancer Foundation called Cancer Stinks, and the game is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and it's against West Morris. And the $200 donation was to go for what they call shooting shirts, and the kids, the athletes will wear the shooting shirts, and they're going to auction them off, and then they're also going to have some other T-shirts that folks can buy, and they're trying to raise money for Children's Cancer Foundation. So Joe Reel was a giving back and going back to Chatham students, giving back to the community. Was he one of your students, Mike, at Chatham High?
I remember him well on the student council, but I never taught him in
Didn't
class.
teach him, but so he was a 2006 Chatham High School graduate. So he's a nice nod to Mr. Reel giving back to the community. A young man, and here he is stepping up already early in his teaching career. So if you have an opportunity, come out. There's a game tomorrow night at the Chatham High School. I believe it's against West Morris Central, and it's a fundraiser for Children's Cancer Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Connors. I appreciate that. Moving on in the liaison reports, music and theater boosters, that would be I'm up. So on Saturday, January 9th, several high school musicians auditioned for the New Jersey Regions Assembly at the Paramus High School, and congratulations to our band, chorus, and orchestra students, all 13 of them. Last weekend, 8 choral, 4 band, and 4 band members performed in the Northern New Jersey concerts. The orchestra will perform in March with 1 student representing the high school on February 6th. The junior division of Region 1 will audition 7th through 9th grade students for the program slated for our March performance. On January 30th, coming up, members of the Chatham High School Theater Department, they traveled to Rutgers University to participate in the Governor's Award competition, which is sponsored through the Speech and Theater Teachers Association of New Jersey. It was an excellent day for Chatham because they took first place win in the comedic pairs, 6th place finish for improv pairs, and 2 students advancing to the finals for dramatic pairs. So they're not just knocking it out of the park here in Chatham, they're taking their show on the road and showing their stuff. The Chatham Middle School all-school production, Aladdin Jr., will be presented this weekend. There's a very enthusiastic cast and crew made up of all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. They've been preparing since early October, and the tickets are on sale at the the middle school main office, and they'll also be available at the door. It typically sells out, so you might want to get your ticket ahead of time. The Music Theater Boosters will host their annual fundraiser breakfast with the musicians Saturday, February 27th at the high school. And throughout the morning, bands and orchestra from grades 5 through 8, as well as the high school musical cast, will present some light musical performances as folks, dine on bagels and tea and crumpets and whatnot. The high school musical, Shrek, is going to be, the opening night is Thursday, March 3rd, and continuing through Saturday, March 5th. The cast will, as always, will give a special performance, a free performance for senior citizens on Wednesday afternoon, March 2nd, followed by a dinner in the Chatham High School Band Room. And the show will be open to the public on Thursday, but the Wednesday night is a special performance for senior citizens, and the dinner is usually served by the Honor Society, and the cast and crew mingle and speak to the senior citizens, answer any questions. They chit-chat about all their experiences in Chatham. Most of them are Chatham residents themselves, having gone through the high school, so that's always a great night, and it's interesting to the kids. The kids love serving at that dinner, and they love interacting with the community. It's one of their favorite nights of the performance. So that is my report for the Music and Theater Boosters. Moving on to Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny.
There's nothing to report at this time.
Okay, and Mr. Gilfillan's not here for Recreation, and the PTO District Cabinet, I don't believe, has met since our last, this week coming up. Very good, so we'll look for a report next time. Moving on, I'd like to pass a motion to pass the minutes of the January 4th public session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions is just Sal? Sal's abstaining, excellent. First, you did that so well, excellent. So now we have our first opportunity for public commentary. After that, we'll move to the action items in the agenda, and then after we do the action items, we'll have a second opportunity for public commentary. If you wouldn't mind, if you would line up at the microphone. If several of you are coming up, you could sign in advance. If you would introduce yourself, that would be great.
Libby Hills and Rath Chatham Borough. I just have a couple of comments and questions. My first question is the presentation that was given by the social studies, I guess, director tonight, can those be put online for us to view before public meeting? So if we have any questions, we can come prepared. Right, but the agenda's online, so can those presentations be put online along with the agenda so we can see them?
We typically have posted those after the committee meeting because they really are meant for the board members as curriculum committee members of the board, and then we post them afterward. But the committees are able to discuss that and make a change of practice if they'd like.
Okay. Because I had a question in regard to the curriculum. So I don't know if it's appropriate to ask the question here. I know the committee meetings are not really open to the public. This was a public one tonight. So I guess I can pose the question to the board. But I'm wondering if in the AP US History class in the high school, there's an author, Howard Zinn, that writes it's called People's History of the U.S. Is that a book that's dictated by Common Core, or is that something that we and the board can decide, or individual teachers can decide if they want to teach it or not?
The latter. We've been using that book for as long as I can remember.
The latter being we have
it's our
it's your
decision.
choice.
The Common Core doesn't dictate anything in social studies that we teach.
Okay. So if we want to question the teachers about it, we should do that, or the board, or, I mean, how do we?
Your first stop would be the supervisor of the department.
Okay, the gentleman who spoke tonight? Okay, great. And I didn't get his name. What's his name?
Steve Mayer.
Mayer, like Mayer?
M-A-H-E-R.
M-A-H-E-R. Okay, thank you. The other thing, I didn't know if Mr. Nonamaker was going to be here, but I wanted to thank him for his years of service as well. And he had commented a couple of meetings ago that he was disappointed that not a lot of people show up to the meetings. But I did want to say that even though people may not be here in the audience, we are watching at home, and it's a great service that you guys, provide to record the meetings, and that Mr. Salvis is here to record them too. So we are interested and involved, and so I just wanted you to know that if we're not physically here, we are watching and paying attention. Just a comment. And congratulations to Mr. Arnott on his nomination. And then I guess my last question is really for the board as a whole. I don't know if this has happened before where a member has stepped down, but what are the criteria used to evaluate new board members, and is there a methodology or are there guidelines? I didn't see anything in the bylaws. Is there any way that, you use a standard sort of, how do you evaluate each of the candidates that you received?
It happens very frequently for a board member to step down, more frequently than an election, actually. And we do have a standard set of questions, but it's a very fluid interview process, so it's more about their involvement in the community, for example, the referendum. What were your thoughts on the referendum? How would you have done things differently? So it's an interview process, but a very fluid give and take interview process. So we try and ask similar questions each time, but again, it's somewhat fluid the dialogue goes on, may go off in a different direction.
So the referendum came up as a subject item?
I wasn't involved, but, I mean, I wasn't involved in the
Yes,
township,
I
I'm a
can say,
borough.
yes, I mean, that, we wanted feedback on what they thought about the last year, and so we posed the question to each of the candidates.
Oh, so just the township board members are involved in interviewing the township?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
And the borough would replace the borough.
And among the outside of the referendum, what other types of questions? I'm a little unclear.
Why do you want to be, why do you want to be on the board? What perspectives and specific skills do you bring to the board? What other community service have you been involved with?
What challenges do you think our school district face? What's the most prevalent? Do you think? How do you think you provide a solution for that?
Okay.
So
And then,
So just some.
and then you,
we had a discussion after each candidate as well, and there was also a questionnaire that we kind of filled out as well, reviewing quality of responses and and what was some of the other things on that second
Just
sheet?
an awareness of kind of what's happening in our district right now, what issues were, just trying to think, just responsiveness, willingness to serve, the time commitment, which some, I think, candidates were surprised at
Yeah.
the time commitment.
Yeah.
Because it is significant.
did you get a lot of candidates?
We had quite a few, yes.
Oh, great.
So, and as I said, when the meeting started, we had a very good pool to really, it was really exciting to see that people are willing to step forward.
All right, thank you.
Ed Barmakian. Can you guys say how many people apply for this?
4, right?
4.
4. They interviewed 4 candidates.
And Mr. Connors, you mentioned Stanley Church, but you kind of left it, you didn't really give any information as far as what you were talking about. Can you just, even though it's only a possibility, can you please just...
That's the reason why I was vague in my description. There's an opportunity.
But you didn't give any description, so I don't really know what you're talking about.
I'm sorry, Neil.
You didn't really give any description. You just mentioned a possibility of Stanley Church, and you didn't say...
The possibility that we may be able to expand. That's an issue in the district with regard to the shortage of room, and we're looking into that right now.
Yeah, please, Rich, Mike.
I'm sorry, I keep saying. Sorry about that. There is a potential area of growth in terms of facilities. It's in the early stages of that.
Are you talking-
And I cannot commit to anything and will not comment any further than it is something we're looking into.
Okay, I'll just ask a question anyway. Does it have to do with kindergarten or not?
No, the space is, the current space is available, and...
The church itself?
Potentially
Yeah, and that's all we
available,
know.
and we're looking into all options.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to go back to that we actually had 5 candidates that showed interest, and one was very interested, but because of an affiliation with something else was unable. They prevented them from pursuing it further, so.
4 that you interviewed.
So, but 4 we interviewed. I wanted to say, there is interest.
That was good.
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional public commentary? There's another opportunity at the end, so we can go through the action items first. We're going to start off with personnel. Ms. Clark?
Yep. I move action items A1 through A19 to vote. Second.
I fired off all my questions last night.
I could just call an audible correction for resolution number 13, James Hyde.
Number 13.
Ratio of .65 payable at $6,342.70.
Wait, I don't see.
For which one? I'm sorry.
James
Number
Oh,
James.
James. Okay, for tennis. Thank you.
And what's the number?
So I'm changing to .65 ratio payable at $6,342.70.
And those are set as part of the contract, right, Mike? Yes. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Grant or Dr. D'Souza on personnel or Ms. Clark? No, all good? Okay. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items A1 through 19 with A13 being corrected.
Mr. Arnott.
I abstain.
Ms. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Mr. Franz.
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0-1.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to finance and facilities. In Mr. Gilfillan's absence, Mr. Connors is going to move these items.
I'd like to move action items B1 through 18, and while you're reviewing those items, I would like to acknowledge...
And could you second that first?
I
Oh,
second that.
thank you. Mr. Connors?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to acknowledge and make reference specifically to donations that were made, in particular, the Lafayette School PTO donated $2,154.60 for the purchase of small work tables at the school's STEM, S-T-E-M classroom. I'd also like to note the Milton Avenue PTO donated $5,039.32 for the funding of a purchase for furniture for the school's tech room. Also at Milton Avenue School, PTO made another donation of $1,000 for funding the purchase of a Little Tykes Playhouse at the school's CHIP program. And then finally, the General Mills donation to the Milton Avenue School of $185 for the purchase of educational materials at the principal's discretion. I would like to thank all of those facilities, those groups, for their continued support of the Chatham education system.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Connors or Mr. DeQuilla on the finance and facilities?
I just had a question on number 14. I just wanted to clarify that there's no dollar amount associated with that agreement settlement.
There is agreements on file in the business office.
So that's,
So there is a dollar?
There is a dollar amount, and I can talk to you about that right after
Okay.
the meeting.
Okay, very good.
Can I ask a question about items 11 and 12? The rates for home instruction, one, it looks like one's at $60 an hour and one's at $75. Is it presumed that it's a higher rate for a high school student versus an elementary student, or
The
is
different
anyone
firms?
that maybe you have to find out from special ed, but
I don't know the answer to that question in particular. I don't know if Beth can help me with that one.
you know. Okay, so I don't know, if maybe.
Are there any
My
additional
guess,
questions? Oh, sorry.
Michelle, sorry, is that these are two different
vendors.
outside vendors, exactly, so they just have a different rate of, that they charge, or a different rate of pay.
Is there a reason we're using two different vendors?
I'm sure there is, based on what the student needs and what
Okay.
what the program calls for, but I don't know specifically what's entailed in each one.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions for finance and facilities? Seeing none. Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items B1 through B and Q. Mr. Arnott.
I abstain.
Ms. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Mr. Franz.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0-1.
Fantastic. Thank you. Moving on to curriculum. Ms. Kenny, if you
Yes,
don't mind.
I'd like to move agenda item C1 to C3 for vote.
Second. It's so fun, these offerings, the after-school enrichment.
Karen, just a quick question on the Model UN. Is that just one overnight?
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was a weekend, a longer overnight.
Oh, yeah, it's
It's several days.
I don't want to give, yeah,
Okay, you don't have to give the dates. It's just,
it's, yeah.
that spans a couple days though, right? It's not one overnight. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on C1 through C3? No? Mr. DeQuilla?
Yeah.
Yes, and it.
Sorry. Mr. Arnott.
I abstain.
Ms. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Mr. Franz.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0-1.
Very good, thank you. I forgot Arnott moves to the top of the voting
That's right, I know.
Well,
I know.
Jumping the gun.
In the absence of Mr. Gilfield, yes, the vice president always goes first.
Right.
Right.
But then, so Ann's off the hook. Moving on to policy, Mr. Franz?
Nothing to report.
Nothing, you don't want to do an audible?
No audible at this time.
Okay, very good. Moving on to board business. Is there any additional or new board business? No? Mike, just to clarify, the high school has used 2 days,
Yes.
and the rest of the district has used 1?
Yes.
Okay,
But the high school is the one that matters most because you're not permitted to hold graduation before the 188th day of school.
all right. We'd have to,
We applied till 10.
yeah,
We're in good shape.
we're in good shape.
I mean, now I said that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You just
What are you
jinxed us.
doing?
We were in good
Sorry,
shape.
think about it. It is 70 degrees out right now.
That's true. Okay, very good. But you have a lot more flexibility too, I think, with the high school in offering Saturday school.
That's true.
And, you know, because they're bigger. You know, you could do a half day. Okay, very good. I just wanted to make sure I had my numbers straight. Does anybody else have any additional board business? No? Sal?
No,
You're good for now?
good for now.
All righty. Excellent. My only comment to the board is I may take a look at reshuffling some of the committees and liaisons, so if anybody wants out of something or onto something, maybe we can talk about that. Now that Sal's here, we can shuffle a little bit if there's opportunity to move about.
So does that mean we would not do anything in April?
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, when we usually do things in
Oh,
April.
no, because the reorg now is now November,
January.
correct?
January.
January.
It's,
Well, it's,
right.
so the reorg should have been in April? I mean, in January?
But
No, it isn't because.
If I can clarify, with the repercussions of having no budget vote, the current 9 board members are in power, or in power until the next board member reorganization in January of 2017, which will potentially have changes based on the November of 16 election. The board typically will have its normal reorganization meeting to set, to reestablish the policies, all the vendors, and the procedures in April, May, with the approval of the budget. But the board members will remain intact. If you desire to change the committees for the school year, that's up to you.
Right, only that it's coming up on a year, and, you know, we might want to talk about shuffling some talent around.
Right, so whatever you do now,
You do through
You'll-
like January.
whatever changes now will then take us through to January
Correct.
next year. Okay,
That's
it's not as
correct.
if you're going to change anything again in...
No, unless there's a
Okay,
mutiny,
yeah,
which I welcome a mutiny.
yeah, I'm good with that.
I just thought, since we've been in these positions for a year, that we might want to, you know, take a look about shuffling around a little bit. But again, it's just board business. I'm open for discussion. I was just taking the opportunity with the John stepping down and Sal joining, that we might want to look at some of the committees that we're on, except for negotiations, which is non-negotiable.
Half of us can't even serve on it.
Okay, so think about it. I'm just throwing it out there for board business. You know, look at the committees you're on. If you're looking to make a change, maybe we can do some trading. Okay? Very good. And liaisons as well. Sal, I know you're passionate about music theater boosters. If that's something you'd like to take on, you know, let me know, and I can shift that over to you as well. So, you know, think about it, and then we can talk about it further.
Thank you, Joe.
Excellent. Any additional board business from any board members? No? Very good. Okay, so thank you. We have our second opportunity for public commentary. Again, if you wouldn't mind just signing in and introducing yourself, that'd be fantastic. Mr. Heap, nothing? Seriously? No? All right.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Make a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.